The high-level economic and trade talks between China and the United States were held in Geneva, Switzerland, from May 10 to 11th. Hours ago, respective American and Chinese delegations held a brief news release separately on the progress of these talks, confirming a big deal being struck. The scheduled joint statement will be released sometime on the 12th May, that is today. But the devil is in the details. Not only it was not a smooth sailing, but at one time looked like the whole thing was about to collapse, as the Chinese delegation seen leaving the meeting place only after about 15 minutes into the talk. So now, let me lead you step by step to the behind-the-door truth about this negotiation. Who initiated it? Short answer, the US. This year is the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationship between EU and China. Months ago, EU sent out invitation to China, hoping President Xi Jinping to visit EU and grace the occasion with his presence. With all things considered, China decided to send someone else instead to the celebration in the EU. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng's visit to Switzerland and France was part and parcel of the event. Then the Trump administration, desperate for a trade deal with China, got wind of it, and with the Swiss government as the broker, finally got a consent from the Chinese government to such a meeting and agree to incorporate an actual entry into the established itinerary. That's why U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent flew all the way to Geneva to meet Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng. And the Chinese government, through news briefing, gave the reason for the consent, that is for the sake of the well-being of the international trade and the welfare of the ordinary people in countries, including the U.S., negatively affected by Trump's tariff war. Why there was a walkout from the meeting by the Chinese delegation shortly after they met with their American counterpart? That's because Donald Trump's impulsive, big-mouth, bravado response to a wicked question from a journalist live on TV that almost blew off their chances to meet the Chinese counterpart. Listen to this.
There are also all these other non-trade barriers, right? But the president said that he is going to bring up Chinese entrepreneur Jimmy Lai and his case during these talks with China, calling calling this, quote, a very good idea. Of course, Lai has been imprisoned in Hong Kong and held in solitary confinement since December of 2020 on these fake charges of conspiracy to collide with foreign forces and conspiracy to publish seditious material.
And who is this gentleman, Jimmy Lai? He's a well-known Hong Kong media figure, founder of the Next Digital, and one of the founders of Apple Daily. He has been arrested and prosecuted in Hong Kong on multiple charges, mainly involving the following. First, violation of the Hong Kong national security law. He is charged with colluding with foreign forces, that's CIA and its white gloves, such as Hong Kong-based NGOs affiliated with USAID and NED, to endanger national security. The accusation claims that he used the media platforms to call for foreign sanctions against the Chinese and Hong Kong governments, thereby endangering national security. Second, illegal assembly. He was convicted of participating in or organizing multiple unauthorized assemblies, such as the 2019 anti-extradition protests, and has been sentenced multiple times for illegal assembly. Third, fraud. His company was accused of improperly using office space in the Next Digital building and was charged with commercial fraud. He has been convicted on this charge. And his current status as of 2024, Jimmy Lai has been convicted on multiple charges and is currently serving his sentence. His case under the national security law is the most closely watched, and the trial is still ongoing or has been postponed. The meeting was in the end able to resume, obviously with the continuous apology and regret from Trump's representative in Geneva. How was the meeting conducted? I am obviously not at the meeting. So how do I know? Yes, I do, because I can make an educated guess from the news briefing at Geneva by the Chinese delegation. Following is Chinese media report of the affair. China's chief representative for China-US Economic and Trade Affairs stated at a press conference held by the Chinese delegation on the evening of May 11th, local time, that the talks were candid, in-depth, and constructive. The two sides reached important consensus and achieved substantive progress. Both parties unanimously agreed to establish a China-US economic and trade consultation mechanism. The two countries will finalize relevant details as soon as possible and will release a joint statement on outcomes of the talk on May 12th. Notice the three very Chinese-style diplomatic words used here. Candid means Chinese representatives gave the US delegation a nothing hidden and nothing held direct confrontation. In-depth means direct to the core issue and real purpose hidden under the surface of the tariff war. Basically, the Chinese told the Americans that we know exactly what you really want from us, and don't try to pull the wool over our eyes. Constructive means both sides, in the end, agree to the give and take principle of further negotiation, with neither side as the dominant. Why I believe the US is actually the one that surrendered. Just listen to the polity in Scott Bessent's statement on the doorsteps of Swiss ambassador to the UN residence in regards to his Chinese counterparts. There was devoid of any accusation on the Chinese or words of bravado of their own.
And I think that led to a great deal of the productivity we've seen. We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive. We had the vice premier, two vice ministers who were integrally involved, Ambassador Jameson and myself, and I spoke to President Trump, as did Ambassador Jameson last night, and he is fully informed of what is going on. So there will be a complete briefing tomorrow morning.
Second, the assistant to Scott Bessent, the US ambassador to Swiss, who was so nervous, almost to the breaking point, and could hardly hide his feeling of both relief and excitement. He made a blunder without even noticing it when called the Chinese vice premier in charge of the negotiation, Mr. He Lifeng, as Mr. Liu He, who was then the chief trade negotiator during the first term of Donald Trump's presidency. Look at the video.
I want to echo the Secretary's remarks with respect to the Swiss government. They've been so welcoming, and they've hosted this, and everything has gone off flawlessly, and we appreciate that. And again, to the Chinese negotiators, Vice Premier Liu He, Vice Minister Li Qiangong, and Vice Minister Liao Min, worked very diligently, and these are very tough negotiators. A couple of them I know from before and have had past interactions with them. And this was, as the Secretary pointed out, a very constructive 2 days. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought. That being said, there was a lot of groundwork that went into these 2 days. Just remember why we're here in the first place. The United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. And we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to resolve
what made the Trump administration a 180-degree turnaround of being humble and polite. I'm not talking about all the protests, unrest, rebellions, and dire consequences against Trump's tariff war domestically in the US, because there are already plenty reports about them all over the mainstream news channels and social media platforms. Let's focus on the following events leading to this negotiation and their timeline. First, the military power balance has reached a turning point, tilting more and more towards China. China has operational hypersonic missiles. The US does not. America's carrier groups are vulnerable. China has the world's largest navy, around 400 ships to the USA's 300, and is expanding rapidly. China has more than 200 times the shipbuilding capacity of the US. In a long, protracted war, this gives China an unbeatable advantage. With the commissioning of the formidable 055 cruiser, Type 052D destroyer, Type 054A and B frigate, Type 093B submarines, and 3 aircraft carriers, etc. China has a true blue water navy. China also has the J-20 and J-35 stealth fighters that can match, if not already superior than the F-22 and F-35 of the US equivalent. Not to mention, China has recently demonstrated its ready-made 6th-generation bombers and fighter jets, while the US has got them only on PPT presentation. Second, in geopolitical sphere, Chinese President Xi Jinping has just visited Russia, not only graced 80th anniversary of Russian victory in World War II, but also joined his old friend Russian President Putin, overseeing the signing of series of bilateral treaties and agreements of strategic cooperation. Trump's attempt to drive a wedge between the two biggest challengers to the US hegemony has failed miserably. Last, but not least, any hope of bluffing China from the so-called position of strength by military means has been dashed with the ongoing war between Pakistan and India. The main actor of the Pakistani air defense that shot down several French Rafale and Russian fighter jets without a loss on its own, J-10C fighter jet in Chinese Air Force arsenal, is regarded as a 4 or 4.5 generation, on the brink of phasing out or gradually replaced by much nearer weapons, such as 5th generation J-20 and J-35, with the 6th generation stuff busy doing the test flight day in and day out. The result of the largest air fight since World War II between Pakistan and India has finally given credence to the quality of China's military strength, which has been long discounted, even discredited by the West due to the lack of actual military combats. If Operation Desert Storm was the Sputnik moment to the Chinese military modernization, then this time around, the systematic superiority of the Chinese military shown against the Western armed Indian military is all there for everyone who has got a pair of clear eyes to see. I haven't even mentioned the tanks and artillery that China has given to the Pakistanis. Just as I am busy preparing this video, the joint statement has been released. China has called Donald Trump's bluff and mercilessly destroyed his delusional bravado. So, let's beg the question to the Donald Trump's administration. Who has got the position of strength? Or let me simply borrow from Donald Trump himself. You have no cards, sir. I raise my case.